Welcome to this Sahara 4 exercise. In this exercise, we will import the wellwork information of the different wells that are present in the project. This information will correspond to all the perforations, the cementing, and the testing done on the wells of this project. So, some considerations before we start with importation. Um, all this data, all this operation data, perforations, cementing, testing, stimulation jobs, and the installation of new parts in the well are stored by Wellwork. This means that you can imagine this as having a folder, which is the Wellwork, and the different files inside that are the different operations inside that Wellwork. So each wellwork will have its own name and associated number, this ID code, and it will have a start and end date. The operations themselves will have the association with the wellwork, but it will also have a sequence number, which is going to denote which of these operations inside this wellwork was performed first, and which one was done at the end of the wellwork. Also, each operation will have its own start date and end date. It is important when you import this that it has like the wellwork date and the days of the different operations inside that wellwork are consistent. If you define a date for a wellwork that goes from one date to another, and you want an operation to be included inside that wellwork, the date of the operation shouldn't extend more than the start or the end date of the wellwork. If you don't have the complete information on all the days of the operations, it is possible to import them by indicating only the start date or the start and end date of the operation. And if you don't have the complete information of the start and end dates of the wellwork, it is possible to import the operations with their date, indicating which ones correspond to the same wellwork using the wellwork number, the ID, and the dates of the wellwork will be calculated, respectively, with the lowest start date and the highest end date of the operation associated with it. So in this case, you will be importing your operations with the date associated to operations, the ID that is going to connect the operation to the wellwork, and then SAR is going to calculate which is going to be the length of that wellwork. Um, then the name of the wellwork will be automatically constructed according to the structure that is seen on the screen right now, and is going to use the wellwork start date for the year and month day uh, items. Then, okay, we will go to our Sahara project now that we have discussed this. We will import the file. In this case, we have an Excel file. Here we go to import. Here we should have Wellworks. Wellworks. And here we can see that we have these three options here. We will go for operations for now. And here we have to look for our Excel file, this one, and look into the Excel file, the datasheet Wellworks. Should be close to the end and is the last one. And here we have our table with the different information. Something important to consider here is that you can import a file with each type of operation, or you can also import a general file containing all the history of all your operations, like all the perforations, all the cementing, and all the testing, all the stimulation jobs in the same file. But in the case that you do this, you have to include a column indicating which kind of operation is. You should have the specification that we are talking about here. You can see perforation, test, perforation, test, perforation, test, and a cementation here as well. So in this case, we have prepared a file that has all the information that we need in a single file. But if you want, you can import just, for example, just your perforations, and create a file just for the perforation, another one just for the test, another one just for the cementation. In the case that you do it like this with a file that has all the information all together in the same file, you will need to include this column here, the operation column, that will define which operation, which kind of operation we are talking about. If you look at this, we have here the sequence numbers. Here it's important to be able to identify the order in which the different operations were performed in each well work. It is not necessarily mandatory if you have your dates of the operations and the association to the well work, because in that case the sequence can be calculated. But in the case that we have plenty of different operations in a same well work, it's useful to have it defined here as the sequence number. Um, okay. In the case that we use a single operation date to start all the operations that are done in the same well work, you need to include the sequence number. Is going to become mandatory, because in that case you are not defining the start date of the operation inside the well work, but you are using the same start date for all the operations in the same well work. Let's say, for example, that in a well work I did, let's say, for example, two perforations and um, one test after that. And the way that you can do this is, you have two options here. Either you include the start date and the end date of each one, in which case the sequence number is going to be deduced, or you can also include the same start date for the three of them, and include the sequence number, so Sarah understands which one comes first inside that well work. The well work in this case is going to be defined by the starting date that we have explained. Obviously, in this case, you will need to have your end date as well for these operations. Sarah will consider the the end date that is at the end, but the sequence number will allow you to check which one goes first and which one goes at the end. Well, another consideration that you should have to avoid having extensive well works for all the operations is that if your import file does not indicate the well work number associated with the operation, you can see here that I have here my well work ID. If I don't have this column, and all my operations have a different start date, what will happen is that Sarah by default is going to create a well work for each different operation, even if they were done on the same well work, which is not ideal, because imagine that you have plenty of files and you create one folder for each file. It doesn't make much sense, so you have to be careful with that. Either include the same start date if you don't have the wellworks defined, or include your wellwork ID column here as indicated. So in this case, something important I was forgetting to mention as well is that if you have previous data, in this case I'm importing data from zero, but if you have previous data of Wellworks in your project, and the previous data which is loaded could be some overlaps there, that you have, for example, you have previous operations, you have previous Wellworks, and inside those Wellworks you forgot to import some operation. SAR is going to automatically calculate that that operation was performed inside the date that is defined for that well work in that well, and is going to unify the information. It's going to allow for the addition of that information. It's not going to be overlap. It's not going to be erased. It's just going to create a new operation inside the corresponding well work if the dates match. Let's say, for example, that you have operations done in a certain date that have defined a well work that goes from the first day of September 2009 to the last day of September 2009. You forgot one of your operations there. For example, let's say that you imported all perforation or test, but you forgot that you have a simulation job done in that same well work. But if the correct date, the end and start date of that acid job stimulation is inside the one that is defined for that well work, Sarah will add that acid job stimulation inside the well work without any problem to the data that was previously imported in another step before. So let's move on here. here we have everything. In principle, everything is fine. We will then see, here we have our ID, so this is going to show which well is associated to the well work. Here we have the job start date. This will define when each job is going to start. This will have the job end date, which here I think there was a mistake when we created this column. Here I will have to assign it job end date, and here we have this format is correct. May, day, year. Yes, this is fine. We have the tops, which will be imported in measure depth, which is fine. Normally, in all the cases, Sahara will try to import always the for the Wellworks always the top and the basis in measure depth. In the case that you imported in TVD sub C, remember that you need the datum to do the conversion here. That is important. If not, you won't be able to see your Wellworks in the Wellwork window. And here we have the number of intervention that, as explained, this intervention number is going to associate the is going to associate it with the well work. Here we have the sequence number inside the well work. Here, for example, we can see that all these different operations, we have this perforation, this test, perforation test, all of them belong to the same well work, and this ID is going to be here is created as the format that we discussed previously, that WW, which means well work, the year of that well work, and the month day of the well work. Here, as we can see, is using the job start date of the well work as the ID for the well work ID. Here we have the sequence number, so it will show us that inside this well work, this was done first, then this one, another one, another one, another one. And here the different types of operation. Remember that this column is optional, but it is required if you are importing different kinds of operations as as the as the sorry here what I'm trying to explain is that you can define here in these file options here, you can define if you have just a single kind of operation. For example, you have your perforation. If you do this column is not going to be this is going to be unselected, because here I'm saying that all the operations in this file, in this whole table, are all perforations. So now it is not needed to have a column that defines the operation. But as I'm now using this all option here, now this operation column is necessary, because I'm saying that I have all the different kinds of operation here, and this column is going to define to which kind of operation I'm talking about. So doing this, erase the previous job end date that I defined here. Here we have a problem with this column name that didn't recognize the keyword. So top is okay, bottom is okay, NMD, then number of intervention of the well work ID is defined correctly as well. Your operation, that's okay. And here we have the results of the test, the oil rate of the test that had as a result oil, the water rates, the total fluid rate, the water injected. In this case we don't have any probably we should check later. The water cut, the level associated to the test salinity, and here for the test that have a gas output, here we can define the hole diameter through which that gas was measured. And here we have more information that is going to be correspondent mostly to the tests, but you can see with more detail which information you can import there by going to the user guide. Here everything seems fine. The only thing that there's something we have to correct all the units. Here what's going on is that we have defined in this project the units as the imperial units, but the original information to which this table was created for is in international units, so we have to modify them all. Here we will modify all the units to correspond to the one that is being the one that is being uh, indicated here. So this doesn't have any unit, but here, for example, all the rates we have to modify them. Meter, cubic meter. This is cubic meter per day as well. Cubic meter per day. I'm doing manually, but what you can do in this case is if you have all the units modified, you can quickly go to edit units and select international units, um, and import the file with that. Here we can see that even this one is in other units. The water cut is not fraction, it's percentage. Here we have the level that is measured. SAR is trying to import it in feet because we have defined imperial units for the project, but the original data of this table is in meters through vertical depth, so we have to import it like that. And here we have the salinity. In this case, is not in pounds per inch, is in grams over centimeters, so we have to modify that as well. Cubic centimeter, gram over cubic centimeter. Here the orifice is in centimeters, not in inches. We have to modify all of this as well. The pressure here is measured in kilos. Type here 1000 of just cubic meters, kilos. Kilos as well. And here the pressure is in kilos as well, and finally also in kilos. Here consider that all the keywords are correct, so that's why also is trying to is allowing this for this error to happen, because as it recognizes all the keywords, it will try also to assign the unit that is the one that is defined as the most as the primary unit of the project, in this case imperial units. So we will do a quick checkup here. So we have meters in measured depth, that's okay. We have cubic meter per day, cubic meter per day, cubic meter per day. We have a percentage, meters in TBD for the level of the tests. We have the units here as well, that's okay. Okay, 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 okay. All of them are fine because all of them coincide with the ones here. So now we will import, and now the data has been imported. You can see here that we have all these records that have been imported, a total of 2072 well work record interventions done. In this case, sorry, the correct thing here would be to say that we have 2072 operations, not necessarily Wellworks, because the Wellworks will be the grouping that they are going to be less than this number. And here we have that one. This is typical in when we export a file from Sahara and then import it in another Sahara project, that the second row is not going to be imported, but this is due to the second row being the one that where all the units are indicated. So if you have this kind of not imported record, is the second one, and has any here is in particular in this case it's saying that it doesn't have a peak, it doesn't have top and bottom defined, but in this case it's just not a valid row. So in the case that you have this just one record that is not being imported, and it's the second one, the second row, and you brought this your file from another SARA file, in that case, another SARA project, sorry, in that case just don't pay attention to this warning here. So okay, so now we have imported our Wellworks, and in the next exercise we will import the wellbore diagram, which will indicate all the parts uh, defined in the well. So thank you for watching and have a good day.